Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
The desert, the rainforest, Timbuktu, Djibouti, fucking Mars. The fact is, all over the fucking world, I am your worst nightmare. The subterranean electrical wire was already plugged into the back of Mo's body, shocking him of all his moisture.
You're in my way.
I'm what?
I can't help him if you don't get off of him.
He was healing. He'd slowly transitioned from singed blackness to human flesh. He was reverting back to the way he was a few minutes ago. And I'm all alone. You can help me.
Fucking hate being alone, man.
So you'll stay?
As long as I can.
Mo?
Guess again, Chuck.
Tyler.
What?
You're not Mo.
Yes, well established, pet.
Did you choose to be you? Did you, opt into control when Tokumi brought you back?
I didn't pick who was driving.
So if we kill Questopo and Tokumi brings him back...
Pushing Questopo down even for a few minutes, he's gonna have to brawl for it.
He will.
You sure?
Yeah. For me, he'll brawl. We didn't even clock it hurtling in the direction of the sand at Tyler's feet. When it impacted the beach, it exploded. That was cool.
Yeah, I actually fight kinda good.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 3, Cataclysm. Chapter 26, Charlie Shayde.
Mo stopped me short of diving headfirst into another standoff with Questopo. I was worried with all the time we'd spent stalling and talking about new plans, he would have gotten bored, flew up into space, pushed the planet into the sun, what he'd been threatening all along. But then my Umnish friend brought up a good point. In Quez's head, he'd thwarted his primary adversary, and the purpose for his focused conquest all along. With Mo removed from the picture, the Jingari warrior general had little left in the universe to occupy his bloodlust or attention, with one exception. Me. I kicked his fucking ass today, and even if he was faking weakness just to draw Mo in closer, Questopo's pride was too intense to let me die in solar inferno believing I was stronger than he was. He'd be waiting for me to prove once and for all that he was mightier, which was a good thing. Also, not the first time this week we had exploited Quez's endless vanity to enact the plot. So we didn't have all day, but Questopo would linger a bit for the moral victory of going all out against me. And he'd surely figure it'd take me some time to get over the crushing defeat he'd already handed me, which gave me and Tokumi and Mofun plenty of time to throw together some sort of gambit. Luckily, we didn't need much time, given how mighty all three of us were. The first thing we established, Mo would step back in the coming battle. He admitted readily something I didn't have the heart to tell him. Foon fought better than Mo did. And once Questopo realized his primary target was still up and kicking, he'd probably go a little harder in round 2, which meant we needed Tyler's relentless creativity, deranged rage, and ability to ride the cusp of his limitation. All the stuff that always made him a nightmare to square off against, now in my corner. I had to admit, I was a little excited about that part. And true to our enigmatic proclamation after blowing Tyler sky high, Tokumi could actually fight kinda good. I did not understand a lick of her abilities, and we didn't have time to clarify much of the details, but the white light she extracted from things when she made them younger was as bizarre and unpredictable as she was in our brief few minutes of interaction. It always seemed like whatever she pulled the light from would roll back into its own history. Trees turning to saplings, rocks turning to magma. But then when she deposited the light into something else, it would react in a way that only she seemed to be able to predict. More than once in her demonstration, Foon and I took cover, expecting a monumental explosion as the white light absorbed into some object without much more than a rustle. Again, the timing was tight. We didn't know how long Quez was willing to wait for his ego-preserving stand, so I couldn't really ask her what was going on. I did notice once when she chucked the white orb into a wooden boat on the shore, the wood of it began to rot a bit and the metal brackets rusted instantly. But even more intriguing and befuddling than that was her impossible elusiveness. In her efforts to convince us she could help in the stand against Quez, Tokumi had challenged both me and Tyler to attempt to hit her. And it was such a preposterous proclamation, such a foolhardy dare, that at first me and Foon kind of scoffed at it, haphazardly and half-heartedly attempted to make contact. I flurried her at maybe 20%, and Tyler tried to tag her with a forceful but clearly held back hydro cannon. We failed to make contact, which at least captured our attention enough to try a little harder.
Twinkles, what the bloody are you singing?
The music, you guys don't hear that?
But nobody on the planet was faster than me, and nobody on the planet was stronger than Tyler. Maybe Questopo, so between his sheer force and my elite omnipresent speed and awareness, surely we should have been able to pin her into a corner, and yet, she just danced away every time. And also sang. I finally understood the frustration Jackson and Sydney must have felt nearly missing me in skirmishes. She didn't seem to be doing anything special. She just kept dancing around, stumbling almost, from lucky break to lucky break, and for all of our might and practiced combat prowess, neither me nor Tyler could land a blow. And it truly seemed to be just that, good fortune, sparing her from getting squashed. But if it was just chance, she exploited it consistently enough that it at least seemed like she had some sort of handle on it. Okay, holy shit, bro, that's amazing!
You are messing around.
I know.
Like that in so long. Fascinating. With the sole exception of Howard Prophet, nobody had ever demonstrated an ability to just flat out dodge me. I needed to hear more. Eventually. For now, we had to kill Jackson. I'd 6 Togami plenty in my futile and frustrating attempts to hit her, so I had no trouble grouping both of my companions back into Questopo's vicinity when we all agreed it was time to take him down. He was still celebrating his great victory, dancing around, tossing things into the stratosphere, laughing wildly, naturally, the worst kind of winner. I signaled to both of them to stay hidden in the brush while I engaged him first. They both nodded like they understood, but I definitely saw Togami try to follow me before I grouped off. Foom pushed her back down, snickering softly.
You're a loon, Twinkles.
She did not respond. I grouped into my enemy's eyesight, halting his vocal jubilation, but not his unfettered joy.
Back so soon, Charlie!
Lying about the IT King was a dirty trick, Quiz, even for you, but I gotta say, it started out with a little more heat than I expected. Is Jackson maybe getting closer to breaching than you're letting on? He smugly scoffed at my naive conspiracy theory, probably assuming I was just in denial.
Perhaps I'm just growing fond of you.
Oh, please don't even joke about that.
Well, it is no joke. I'm not too proud to admit you intrigue me. Some of his more human instincts must be seeping into my psyche. I was waiting for you to return.
Yeah, I figured.
We don't have to fight.
Don't we?
You could join me, Charlie. I haven't quite determined what's next for me, now that wretched thief has finally been brought to justice. I thought I might pursue the Endako Prince next, but I may enslave your race first, utilize this planet as my home base for future conquests. It would be nice to have a queen as powerful as you to hold down the fortune I have to leave, not to mention a queen as beautiful as you to keep me company when I return. You could always just pretend I'm Jackson.
That's an idea. Or else maybe I'll just beat you until you let him out, since he's already so close to the surface. He sighed exasperately, but even through this he couldn't eclipse the unbridled joy of his recent victory.
How many times do I have to tell you that's not how it works? This body belongs to me now. Without your disgraced heretic, you cannot put me back.
Well, then maybe I'll just beat you because I hate you and it's fucking fun.
Yes, how about it then, if you have no interest in being my queen?
0, I brusquely interrupted.
Let's see what happens when we go toe-to-toe. Honestly trying for once, without ulterior motives. Without you holding back to protect your lover, or me letting you get your hits in to get me closer to my vengeance.
Is that how you're describing the part where I kicked your ass around the world? He fiendishly, arrogantly grinned, slowly bringing his hands together in front of his face and glaring at me over the top.
Too much talking. Come and get me, girl.
With the motion came the most unfathomably powerful field of T-kick interaction I'd ever experienced, radiating out from him and repelling everything in all directions, a 20-foot radius of unstoppable force. It came on so suddenly, so strongly, my instinct took over, and I grouped to the edge of it, where I could safely stand without being torn to bits. For a moment, I just looked at him, roaring with laughter at the center of the howling, ferocious madness. He stopped all the bullshit abruptly when Foon splashed the back of his head. It wasn't enough to knock him over or hurt him, just enough to stun him out of his justified show of force. A burst of water penetrating his force field could, after all, only come from one particular source.
So dramatic.
Tyler rolled his eyes as he stepped out of the forest and into the clearing with us, sauntering in a circle around Quez to my side.
All the yelling and such, really, it's too much, mate.
Why are you?
That's because of me.
Tokumi squealed, scampering out of the brush with much less practice cool than Foon, arriving to my opposite side.
I brought him back. Hi.
Quez-Toko's perplexed gaze shot from her back to Tyler, then finally landed on me. When his agape jaw snapped shut, he wore his typical haughty smirk.
Are you really so afraid of facing me alone, Charlie?
That's the thing, Quez. You have to face everyone alone. So you convince yourself it's what makes you stronger. You don't have a fucking choice, but I do. And that's why you'll never win.
So these are more of your friends then?
Nope, we just met.
And she fucking hates me.
Luckily, the two of them rushed to action before Quez could further scrutinize my theatrical declarations, which admittedly didn't cut much mustard with the ragtag team I'd assembled for this particular bout.
Hey, so can we get like a different song before we start fighting, or... Oh yeah, this'll work.
Tyler brought his hands together and bellowed a mighty roar, sending a column of water at Quez-Topo powerful enough to pulverize him. He was too quick to get hit, anticipated the attack, and launched into the sky, snatching a few taller trees from the earth and swinging them toward Tyler. I grouped into action, briefly reassembling on the closest tree to Tyler and ungrouping it before it could impact him, even though in his current blue state, it would just pass right through anyway. I realized this just as I clocked Tokumi with my sixth sense, sliding on her knees beneath a second tree sweeping toward Tyler, brushing her hand across it and extracting an orb of white light as the tree reduced to a mere sapling. She hopped to her feet, holding the orb firmly balanced on her fingertips as Tyler fired a few more hydro shots into the air at Quez-Topo. He deftly dodged them, but when I grouped to his altitude and flurried him for a second...
Hey, Tyler, sing with me.
I don't know the
Just
bloody...
sing the same song that I was singing before. Ready?
He found it much harder to avoid the fist of water that amalgamated above him and slammed him gruffly into the ground.
You're a terrible singer.
Fuck you.
No sooner did he impact than did Tokumi expertly hurl her orb of shimmering brightness into the ground beneath him, ostensibly hitting some kind of sprout, which immediately shot into a full-grown pine tree, launching him back up into Tyler's aquatic fist. It pummeled him straight down again, and as I regrouped, I caught Tokumi sprinting at the tree she'd grown, brushing her hands across it once more to reduce it, ball of light again swirling on her fingertips as Quez-Topo slammed back to the earth. I grouped over to him, panting in the crater, as Tyler cackled and Tokumi giggled in the background, exchanging a super premature high five, then pelvic thrusting vulgarly in his direction. Quez-Topo looked winded, aghast, and I reached out my hand to ungroup his head before he could regain composure. Then I collapsed on top of him. The foulness of his fiendish grin inches from my face. I could still see him, feel his breath, smell Jackson's cologne. Six him. My senses were all fully online. I just couldn't move. Try as I might, no matter what I did.
Chuck, you alright, pet?
Charlie, honey?
Did you really think?
He whispered in my ear, typical harmony so muted it sounded like Jackson.
That someone as powerful as me didn't sort out how to tweak your little brain mechanisms exactly the way I wanted to days ago?
I couldn't resist, sat paralyzed as he closed the gap between us, grabbing the back of my head. For a second, I was afraid he'd kiss me. Instead, he just said,
You wound me, Charlie. I think I will actually miss you.
and without another word, he darted straight up into the sky.
He's trying to push the Earth into the sun, Tyler.
I overheard Mo's voice as I flopped face first into the crater where he left me. I tried to ungroup myself, to group up, to fling my limp body at him, but it wouldn't work. I didn't know why or how. He was kinking all the right hoses, pinching all the pressure points to allow me to witness his glorious triumph in all of its splendor with all of my senses, powerless to do anything to stop it.
Fuck. Shit.
I heard Tyler cuss, then sixed him slinging both arms up, successfully lassoing Questopo around his ankles with two titanic whips of white water. Foon yanked him back to earth with a mighty bellow, pushing himself to his limit, cycling the water around a complete circuit so he could re-up and fire, but Quez resisted. In spite of all of his efforts, Tyler Foon's most powerful pull, Questopo began ascending again.
Twinkles, check on Charlie.
He commanded through gritted teeth, digging his heels in, intensifying the potency of his whips with a calculated concern not to dry himself out. Every ounce of water was dedicated to this restraint, to the point where I sixed his face and body, returning the flesh tone, save the one single ring encasing the Jingari general. Tokumi rushed to my side, flipped me over.
Hold on.
She declared, her blissful, carefree chaos nowhere to be heard. She pulled an orb from me, stuffed it into the brown lump in the pocket of her dress, but I still couldn't move.
Shit.
Heal her.
Tyler roared as Questopo briskly jerked up another 10 feet. Then another, dragging Foon forward across the forest floor.
I can't. I think he's jamming her brain. He's still emitting the signal. I can't just...
Tokumi, help me, I can't.
Tyler grunted, bending so far backward in an attempt to yank Quez down, I thought his spine might crack.
Get me up there. I need to touch him.
He wasted no time, stomping his foot once to send a geyser out beneath Tokumi. She soared through the air with a focused grace, reaching Questopo and brushing her hands across his body as she fell. Foon stomped again, sending up a second geyser to catch her and ease her back to the ground, now with a swirling orb of white light pooling onto her fingertips, a single thread connecting that orb to the violent apocalypse jetting out of the atmosphere. As the time streamed into the ever-growing ball on her fingertips, flowing down the thread from Questopo's body and extracting him into the past, he descended. He came down in the sky through his previous positions from just a few seconds ago, and for a while, it seemed like this bizarre force combined with Foon's might well be enough to ground him. Then the motherfucker kicked it into a higher gear.
Fuck.
The failsafe reached into her pocket, pulled out what I now could six clearly was a potato, and dropped it at her feet. She partitioned the orb of purity balanced on her fingers just as it started to get too large for her to control, dropping some of the light into the potato. No sooner had she done that, the orb was enormous all over again, so she repeatedly divvied it up, dropping the excess into the potato at her feet while the ball continued to grow. In spite of their combined efforts, in spite of him skipping lower every few seconds as globs of white light streamed down her tether, Questopo was no longer getting closer to the ground. In fact, ever so slightly, I could six it. He was going up again.
Can you pull time on it any faster?
Can you pull him down any harder?
She snapped, not losing focus on her concentrated efforts to keep the glowing orb manageable.
I mean, no.
Well, if I drop this, it doesn't fucking matter what he does. His time is so dense, we'll all die.
Fuck!
Tyler thundered, straining his body to the limit, pulling back on the reins of his watery whips with every fiber he had in him. But Questopo started to climb. Gradually, yeah, but faster than before. As my two new partners struggled and grinded, I just sat there, in that crater, sixing the being I hated the most in all of creation, driving my lover's body higher. Higher. It was only a matter of time before he wore them out. Then, like magic, I could move.
Told you it'd be good to keep your earpiece on.
Phil, I gasped, steadily finding my feet, shaking off the cobwebs and the ringing in my head.
I'm at your brain now. I worked on an algorithm to keep switching up the frequency he needs to hit to jam you. I was sort of working on it for the last couple of days. I didn't know if I'd finish. Go, Charlie. Fuck him up before he figures it all out.
I didn't need any more invitation than that. When I grouped up to him, he immediately forced me away. He'd done what he did at the start of the battle, enacted this force field, this brutal, unrelenting push away from him, as colossal and potent as the sinks a few days ago pulled in. I regrouped on the edge of it again and again, too terrified of the tempest to dive into it. I was 10 feet away from him, screaming like an animal, tearing toward the sky while my partners below continued losing ground. The amount of raw power he was putting out, not only resisting both of them, but also repelling me, was nothing short of terrifying. But then, I remembered a very specific day, on the Detweiler Bridge years ago. I grouped through a similar, albeit milder, such Jackson field, inch by inch, 1 millimeter at a time, particles streaming off of me like sand in a wind tunnel, just to get to him, pull him back. It worked once. Not like I had a better idea. It hurt. And even though I didn't sustain physical pain very often, I had a pretty high tolerance for it still. There was no denying it, and no other way to put it. Having your body shredded into pieces just so you can reassemble it and get torn up again, it hurt exactly as much as you'd expect. It felt like my skin was being peeled off, then doused with scalding hot acid, like rusty knives were turning and lacerating through me, filleting my flesh off of my bones. It was all I could do to keep putting it back on, then letting it fly off, putting it back on, grouping forward to the titanic vortex of force, gradually, one step at a time. Every inch of me cried for relief. Every piece of me was howling in pain. Through it all, I never broke my gaze, directed straight at him. He was howling like a ghoul, like the devil he was. Long hair billowing chaotically in all directions. It distorted his face. It morphed him so drastically, but you couldn't deny it was still Jackson. That was the thought that kept me going, pressed me through the unending, insufferable torture of taking one more step closer, then one more, for a week. The cruelest, most twisted feature of Questopo's wrath was the face he wore while he was doing it. Now that very same face drove me forward. I had to get to it. I had to reach him, to shove my hand down into the void and pull back the peaceful, kind, courageous, gentle, forgiving, genuine, passionate angel who had saved me again and again from myself and from the world. Returning the favor, saving Jackson Teak, was the only thing keeping me from quitting. And I would have gotten to him. I didn't need any more help than I'd already gotten from Tokumi and Tyler and Phil, but then I got it anyway. One last push from the least likely source, for the faintest flicker of a moment. I caught a glimpse of something that everyone from every dimension had spent the last week telling me was impossible. His eyes, the diabolical, roaring blue eyes of Questopo, started to flicker with the brown. He choked on his bellow, blinked rapidly, shook his head as the force field surrounding him started to skip and waver, lose some of its consistency, a lot of his punch. He lurched down in the sky, lost some altitude, but quickly stopped the plummet. A look of sheer, confused terror splashed onto Questopo's face as his eyes kept blinking back and forth. Brown, blue, and I couldn't help but smile, imagining JT on the other side of the trenches battling his way through the madness, through the unspeakable pain and anguish of Questopo's mind, crawling inch by inch forward just to get to me when I did the same to get to him. With both of us struggling together, we each only had to struggle half as much. In a single group, I made it the rest of the way. Through his crippled, tattered attempt at holding me back, I flurried his body relentlessly, but only for a few seconds, during which I felt the release of any sort of telekinetic field he was still managing to use to repel me. He had no ability to keep fighting. Sandwiched between us, he couldn't stand a chance. When I stopped, he was teetering there, bruised, bloody, battered, hanging his chin to his chest, but he lifted it momentarily to shoot me a brown-eyed smirk, a quick raise of his eyebrows. His eyes jumped back to blue, then grew wide as his mouth fell open, emitting a frail, pained, whimpering gasp. This one's for Murphy. I growled, throwing a hook right across his jaw, sending him pirouetting and spitting, and the combined might of Tokumi and Tyler finally yanked his ass down to the ground, shattering every single bone in his body. I took no more risks. Before I could even confirm if the impact was enough to kill him, I grouped to where he landed, pointed my gun between his eyes, locked and loaded with an Ajax bullet. I squeezed the trigger halfway before realizing I had one last thing to say. Don't move, please. And then, 6 years after the first time I said it, I put a bullet into Jackson Teague's head.
Fucking hell!
Foon growled, slamming himself to the ground, and all the way until he was laying on his back, arms sprawled out beside him. He panted a few times as Tokumi rushed toward me.
That was fucking gnarly.
It wasn't that bad.
She rolled her eyes as I sidestepped, letting her squat next to Jackson. Just as she was about to press her hands into his chest, pull out the enigmatic orb of serene but terrifying white light, she froze. Her eyes were locked on Jackson, as blood trickled from the hole in his forehead. But she wasn't looking at this wound, and it was obvious when she reached out, ran her fingers across the scar on his eye.
I know this.
Her peppy, high-pitched voice sunk into a grim, frightened husk. Tokumi, you need to bring him back. We need him upright. Can you?
Yeah.
She distractedly balled her fist, suddenly shivering, eyes darting over her shoulder.
Yeah, here.
And in a flash, the strange girl pulled that familiar orb from his body and jammed it into her pocket. The hole in his head was gone, all of his bones unshattered, but before I could question her further about what the fuck just happened, she bolted away. I would have grouped after her. My newfound friend, my greatest regret, the savior of my love story, without whom I never could have fathomed my happy ending. I wanted to bring her back, to ask her what was wrong, to try to understand her. I wanted to thank her for her warrior spirit, for her undeserved faith in me, for her chaotic electricity that zapped me back up when I thought I was on the mat forever, for her help. I wanted to be her friend. Maybe even her sister. Tokumi, wait! I yelled after her, but she disappeared into the trees around us a second later, not looking back. And somehow the second I lost sight of her, I couldn't fix her either. It was heartbreaking, but then Jackson woke up. When his eyelids slowly peeled back again, the eyes were brown. But I waited anxiously to see if they would change. This time, finally, they stayed that way. The longer I watched, the longer I waited, the more I convinced myself that this time it was real. No tricks, no games. He was back. We were together again. If there was any part of me left that doubted it, that was quelled as well. once the IT King picked up. This time, surely, there was nothing phony, nothing artificial, nothing forced. This time it was impossible to doubt. Raw, fervent emotion, basting me in his affection like he'd never let me go again, and good. I didn't want him to. Through wheezy, unsteady, laborious breath, he cracked the most beautifully exhausted smile I'd ever seen.
Unfucking believable.
I told you I'd save you, baby. I retorted, wiping away the tears that were falling from my cheeks to his. He grabbed my hand, but his grip was so frail and rickety he dropped it right away. I snatched it back up, pulled it to my mouth, and kissed it.
I thought that we agreed. That baby was the dopiest pet name possible.
I interlaced our fingers with one hand, cradled his head with the other. Sorry, how are you feeling, asshole?
Well...
He started, then his head jerked sideways and he audibly groaned.
Kind of like there's a really pissed off, vengeful alien screaming and pounding away on the inside of my skull with a sledgehammer. Plus like 3 really strong people spent the last 15 minutes thoroughly kicking my ass. You and Tyler, huh?
Well, not exactly. It's a long story.
Hey, when was...
JT, cool it. You don't have to talk right now.
Nah, I kinda do. Listen to me. When was the last time...
He grimaced, held his breath, and his back arched up. Obviously, Questopo was still clamoring like a wild beast to get to the surface, but Jackson swallowed him again, exhaled, persisted. This was obviously important.
When was the last time I told you that you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life?
In those exact words, it's been quite a while, I think. He smiled genuinely, shut his eyes, started breathing heavier, shivering.
He's so strong, Charlie. And he's really mad.
I'm gonna sedate you, okay? Just so you don't have to keep fighting him. I'm gonna group to Phil and get a sedative. I'm gonna take you back to HQ. I'm gonna get medical to straighten you out, and then we're gonna figure out how to shut him down for good, but don't worry, all right? I got you now.
I know you do.
I'm not going anywhere. Never again.
I know you're not.
And the second we figure it out, the second we get you back on your feet, you and me and Sydney are burning beam to the fucking gravel and booking it.
I know we are.
Keeping him safe, getting him secure, running away. It's also easy to talk about, so impossible to do, but I'd worry about all of that when it stopped feeling so good. I grouped up to Phil's lab, snatched up a sedative, and brought it back to him before he could even notice I'd vanished. I love you, JT. His eyes rolled into his skull. As I jabbed the syringe into his neck, he deliriously managed to mumble one last thing.
I love you too, Charlie.
I'd always considered that response to be so silly, so necessarily less than the phrase it was responding to. For some reason, this one, Jackson's I love you too, packed so much more significant of a punch than my I love you preceding it.
Thank you for listening to the Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. Please follow me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Rate me on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts. I'm up to 96 ratings on Spotify. I would love to see 100 pretty soon. You can email me, beamchronicles@gmail.com, or just comment on Spotify or whatever if you have something that you want to say. You can also send me money on Buy Me a Coffee by clicking support the show in the episode description. Speaking of Buy Me a Coffee, I went and made some reward tiers on there. I just kind of wanted to more formally gauge the interest for the bonus content that I had mentioned last week, the prequel stuff involving old school equalizers or Howard Prophet's backstory, etc. If that interests you or you just want to stay abreast while I'm on hiatus starting in a few weeks, please go check it out. I tried to make a free tier just with information, but they wouldn't let me. I don't know. It's really awkward to ask for money. Life is getting really busy really quickly for me with my job and such. It's just kind of that time of year, which is usually why I try to wrap up the season before all of this, but I should have no problem getting the last 2 episodes out in the next couple of weeks of April. All music and sound effects are sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Janet Shasha for creating the cover art for the show. Find her on Instagram at ChiliBeanArt, and thanks again for listening.